I'm scared to say this because I know that people really like this book. The plot wasn't plotting, wasn't into it. The book was like really, really long. What was the point of all of this? Like, I don't think the author even knows.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome back, or welcome to my channel if you are new here. Today I'm going to be doing a video that I actually enjoy doing. I think I did this last year, I might have even done it the year before, I can't remember. But I enjoy looking back on the books that I read throughout the year and talking about the best and the worst books that I read. So today I'm going to be going through my top 5 worst books that I read this year and my top 5 best books, or like favorite books that I read this year. And I'm pretty much basing this off of like rating, like what I rated them. So I will pop in the rating somewhere on the screen when I talk about the book. The way that I think I'm going to set this up is we're going to talk about the worst books first, get those out the way, and then talk about the best books. That way we can end on a more positive note. And then within those two sections, for the section of the worst books, I'm going to go in order of like least worst to worst, if that makes any sense. Like the book that I disliked to the book that I absolutely like can't believe I wasted my life reading. And then for the best books, I'm going to start with the book that I really enjoyed and work my way up to the book that like changed my life. I can't believe I didn't read this sooner. So I know some people, when they do these videos, they say, oh, in no particular order. No, there's absolutely a particular order that we are going in. And so we're going to jump right into the first book on my worst list. It is actually Serpent in the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. I'm so sorry. I thought that I was going to love this. I went into it with the expectation that I was really going to be into this because it's like romantasy, which, not that I'm like a super huge romantasy girl, but I feel like if I'm going to read fantasy, romantasy is a way to get me into fantasy. So there's that. Also, just people that I'm friends with on BookTube that, you know, I respect their opinion on books, and I typically tend to agree with their opinion on books and like their ratings and stuff. They love this, and so that was another reason why I thought I was really gonna like it. And then it's vampires, and so as someone whose favorite show of all time, or second favorite show of all time, is The Vampire Diaries, I figured I'd be all over this. I read this during September, during the Mystic Readathon. I believe this was one of the books that won one of the poll picks, and I thought I was gonna eat this up. I really did. But it turns out I was not a fan. It wasn't the worst thing that I've read. I liked the male main character. The female lead character, however, I was not a fan of her. I think she kind of is part of what ruined this for me. I found her to be very obnoxious and just doing too much. And I typically don't like when female characters are like that. And yeah, this is the similar reason as to why I didn't like, oh, this isn't even supposed to be on this list. You may be surprised, although if you've been on my channel, especially like on sprints and stuff, you probably already heard me talk about this. But if you haven't, you may be surprised to hear, because I know this is a fan favorite for some. I'm scared to say this because I know that people really like this book. But the first one is When the Moon Hatched. I do not remember who the author is of this book, but I'm sure the picture of the book is on the screen and you can see who the author is on the cover. But yeah, I was not a fan of this. Wasn't into it. The book was like really, really long, and it just felt very like episodic. It didn't feel like there was like a real plot that we were following, if that makes sense. So like that was kind of annoying to me. She as a character, like our main character, I don't even remember what her name was. Was it like Rave or something? And I did like, what was his name? Khan? He was cool. I didn't dislike him. He was all right. He's not going to be like a new favorite book boyfriend of mine or anything, but I did like him. But just Rave, I don't know. I really couldn't stand her. She was pretty insufferable, and she kind of ruined the book for me, to be quite honest. I typically love like a strong female character, but I think that she was just so stubborn and like thought that she knew everything all the time. And most of the time she was putting herself in peril. It was like, girl, if you just sat down somewhere, like you'd be all right. I feel like the author spent more time on things that she didn't really need to spend time on, and spent less time on the things that she probably should have spent more time on. I think that if the book was shorter, right? If the book was like maybe 300 or 400 pages, maybe I could have appreciated it more. But by it being as long as it was, I just was kind of over it by the end. Both of these characters were just so horny all the time. It was like, you guys don't even really like each other. It doesn't seem like you guys are actually romantically or emotionally connected. It seems like you guys just like each other because the sex is great. and that's not really a romance. So that was also a bit of a struggle for me. I had a hard time buying this as a romance. So yeah, for all of those reasons, it is not a great book in my opinion. The reaction that books like Phantasma and Quicksilver are getting, that is the reaction that the second book in the When the Moon Hatched, I don't even know what the name of that series is, but the second book in that series would have to get that type of love, that type of reaction to get me to pick it up, because otherwise I have no desire to continue this series. The next book on my list, kind of shifting gears genre-wise, is actually a horror book, and it is The Trees Grew Because I Bled There by Eric LaRocca, or Eric LaRocca, I'm not sure how you say the last name. But this is a very short book, actually. This, I believe, is the second book. I think the first book is called Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke, and I do have that, but I haven't read it yet. They're both anthologies, so they're basically a collection of short horror stories, but they're not like connected. You don't have to read one to read the other, so I decided to go with this one first. And I was disappointed, honestly, which I was kind of surprised. I had heard really great things, and so I was really excited to pick up anything of his, to be honest. And this did not satisfy me in the like horror department. I wouldn't describe this book as being like, I don't know, I guess just for me, not saying that it doesn't fit into the horror genre, but for me, horrific, horrifying, terrifying, scary, like I wouldn't use any of those words to describe this. It was more like weird uncomfortableness, and that just doesn't do it for me personally. Like, I guess I need something more. Like, I feel like this didn't give me enough of what I wanted. Lots of queer characters though. I will say that if you are looking for like short stories or horror stories featuring queer characters, this is definitely like a good little, you know, book to pick up for that. There are 8 short stories in this. There was only 1 out of the 8 that I like genuinely like really did enjoy, and the reason why I liked it is because it is like a short story version of a novel that I really liked, The Chain, which is also a book that I read this year. There's a story in here that basically is The Chain, but in a short story version and with queer characters. Maybe with the stories, you know, being so short, there just wasn't enough time to do as much with them. But I think, I could be wrong, but I want to think that the one that's on my shelf, I think it only has like 3 to 5 stories in it, and it is significantly longer than this one. And so maybe there will be more development and maybe I'll like those stories more. I don't know, we'll see. I'm open to trying this author again, mainly because I already own his books. There's also another book that I own by this author called Everything the Darkness Eats, and that is an actual novel. It's not an anthology, so I do want to read that as well. So yeah, we are going to give this author another go, but the first time didn't go so great. The next book on the list is a book from my self-destruct list, and I kind of knew sort of that I wasn't gonna like this book. I had a feeling, and it is The Lifeguards by Amanda I. Ward. This ended up disappointing, sort of. I can't really say it was disappointing because, like I said, I went into it kind of expecting that it wasn't going to be great. And so I was kind of like, you know, lukewarm going into it. And it lived up exactly to that lukewarm expectation that I had. This book follows, I think it's like 3 or 4 boys. They're like 15, they're in high school, but it's summer break and they're lifeguards, but they're, you know, pretty well off and they live in an affluent neighborhood and all that kind of stuff. Someone turns up dead, and you're basically kind of following the events that led up to this happening and trying to figure out who killed this person and like why. The story itself, the pacing is like very slow. The story itself is like kind of boring. It's not super interesting. And what really kind of brought it down for me, like rating wise, is the fact that this book uses mental health in a way that I don't love. I don't like when mental health is used as like a prop or like a tool to like justify something or push a storyline along. And I feel like that's what happened in this book. I didn't like the reason why the person that did what they did it. I just feel like this book didn't represent this mental health issue in the way that it deserved to be represented. And I don't know, just to me it felt a little irresponsible. I don't know, I don't like when books do that. And so that was one of the main reasons why it kind of just tanked the score for me a little bit when it came to the rating. But outside of that, like I said, the book was kind of boring and like slow paced and wasn't really that interesting to begin with, so it is what it is. And the next book is a book that you have probably heard me talk about before. I did a whole reading vlog for this book back in, I want to say June, because I read this book for Battle of the Booktubers round 1. And it is None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. I thought that I was going to like this. I had been actually looking forward to reading a Lisa Jewell book because I had never read anything from this author before. So I was really excited about it going into it. I had heard pretty decent things. The synopsis sounded really good. So I was excited going into it. I will say that. And it disappointed me hard. I didn't didn't expect it to be as much of a letdown as it turned out to be. And I won't spend too much time talking about it in this video because, like I said, I have a whole reading vlog dedicated to it, so I will link that video down below in case you want to hear more of my like in detail thoughts. But overall, I think that the book was very like tedious. It does a good job of like building suspense and building tension and keeping you on the edge of your seat and you wanting to know what's gonna happen next, who did it, who's responsible, what, you know, whatever. You want to know. So it does a great job in that aspect of it. But as far as like the plot and like once you get to the end of the story, you kind of get to the end and you're just like, so what was the point of all of this? And that was very frustrating for me. This book basically follows these two women. They both have the same birthday. They were born in the same hospital. They go to the same restaurant for their birthday, and then they end up meeting in the bathroom, like unexpectedly. They kind of like ran into each other and was like, hey, it's my birthday. Oh, it's my birthday too. Oh, how crazy. And so they kind of hit it off. One of the women is a like podcaster. Is that what it's called? Is that the word? Is that a word? But she has a podcast. And the other woman, she wants to reinvent herself. You know, so she decides that it'll be a great idea for this woman who has this podcast to do her next podcast series, you know, episodes or whatever on her and like her life story and her like reinventing herself. And the woman agrees. Weird things are happening. There's weird things happening with their husbands and their relationships and stuff. There's weird stuff going on with the one who like wants to reinvent herself. She has some weird stuff going on with like her whole life story. Her whole history is weird. But she starts doing weird things. Like she's just kind of like a odd, creepy person. I won't say too much more beyond that because I don't want to spoil anything, even though by the end you don't get any answers or anything anyway. But yeah, that's pretty much the synopsis of the story, is them doing this podcast together and her being like really creepy. If you really want to hear more in-depth thoughts, you can go watch that video. But yeah, we're gonna move on because that book really gets me worked up, really makes me like, gets me really angry. The next and final book, so this is the #1 worst book that I read this year, and it is The Resort. I think the author is like Sarah Ox or Sarah Oaks or something. I'm not sure how you say the author's last name. This is like one of those like tropical island, like murder mystery type things. Funny enough, I remember listening to this because I actually was listening to this while I was building these bookshelves you see behind me. But I don't even really remember too much about it because I just remember getting to the end of it and being like, wow, this was really dumb and a waste of my time. They like all work on this island. None of them I don't think are from there. They all have like kind of migrated there from different parts of the world, like Australia and America, whatever, UK. Someone dies and they're trying to figure out who did it. And then it turns into like this serial killer thing. So it's like all these people are like now trapped on this island. They can't get off the island because there's a storm coming. If you ever watch like a slash movie, you're like, oh no, like don't go in there. Like don't do that. Like, oh, why don't you just call? Why don't you just dial 911? Like there's all these like rational things that you are telling the person on the screen to do. And obviously it's a movie, they can't hear you. But there's like all these things that they could have done and they do like the most stupid thing that you could possibly do in that scenario, in that situation. And that's kind of how I felt about this book. If they had made one right decision in this book, then there wouldn't be a story. And I just feel like, books like that just kind of don't really appeal to me very much. The plot wasn't plotting. You find out who did it, but you're just like, but why? I don't think the author even knows. So shifting over to a more positive side of things, I'm now going to talk about the top 5 books that I read this year. And again, we are going to start off with good to amazing. So starting with the good, I'm going to start off with Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. I recently read this book maybe like a month ago or so, and I loved it. It was great. This is a book that is very like heavily hyped and has been for a while now. And I tend to be very like weary when it comes to like hyped books because I tend to have my expectations set a little high because so many people are like, oh, it's so good, you gotta read it. And so I go into it expecting something and then I'm disappointed when I don't get whatever I made up in my mind that it was gonna be. But pleasantly, I was surprised with this one because it actually did live up to my expectations. Very interested to see where it was gonna go. There's a lot of, again, like suspense and anticipation and wanting to know like what's going on. And the plot twist was really what like was the nail in the coffin for me. Was like, oh, this is it. Like, this is a 5-star. Because I will say that I did not see the plot twist coming. I should have, and I'm so mad at myself that I didn't. But I'm also kind of glad because when a book can surprise me like that, it makes me want to give it like a higher rating. And so this book definitely did that for me. If you're not familiar with this story, it is basically about this couple who their marriage is kind of like on the rocks. Like things are not going well. They are not happy. And so they decide to go to this like cabin middle of nowhere in the snow. And they are hoping that this little getaway, just the two of them, will help them kind of reconcile and kind of like rejuvenate their relationship, bring that spark back, bring the love back into their relationship. But they're both harboring secrets, right? They both are lying. They're both hiding things. They have secrets. I don't want to say too much because I really don't want to spoil anything. But yeah, it's really good. It's really good. The next book that I have on my list of best books of the year is Every Time I Go on Vacation, Someone Dies. I believe the author of this is Catherine Mack, I want to say. This follows an author who is going on like a tour, like a book tour. And I think she's going with a bunch of other authors as well. And so it's like all these authors together on this book tour. I think they're somewhere in like the Mediterranean. I want to say it's Italy, but I can't quite remember. But you kind of get to follow them around. And along the way, while they're on this tour, there are attempts on people's lives, and then there are some people that actually get taken out altogether. And so the whole time you're trying to figure out, one, who's doing this, and two, why, three, who are they even trying to take out? Because it seems like in some of these situations, the people that are being killed are not the actual targets, or are they? And so it's a fun time. I really love stories where the narrator or like the main character kind of like breaks that fourth wall and they start talking to you, the reader, as if you were there, as if they're like really talking to you. I enjoy that type of writing, and so this book does that. There's a lot of humor infused in this, and it's kind of like lighthearted and cozy. And I'm also someone who doesn't really enjoy like cozy anything, to be quite honest. I liked the twists and the turns. It was a fun book. I highly recommend if you're looking for like a cozy like murder mystery for the summertime. I would definitely recommend this one because this was a lot of fun. And similarly, I was talking about books where like the author like breaks that fourth wall and like talks directly to the audience or the reader. The next book on this list does a very similar thing, and that book is Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone. Again, also similar titles, because that was Every Time I Go on Vacation, Someone Dies. This is Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone. But yeah, this is Benjamin Stevenson's book. I loved this. This is a book that I read in September, I believe, because I'm pretty sure this was one of the first books to win a poll pick during the Mystic Readathon, where I had my subscribers and my Instagram followers vote for what book I read. And I'm so glad that this won because I ate this up. This was fantastic. I think on the flip side, while Every Time I Go on Vacation, Someone Dies is more of like a summery kind of vibe, this is more of like the winter vibe. Because this takes place at like a resort somewhere. I think it's like in the mountains where you can go like skiing and stuff. So it's like definitely like a wintry, like snowy setting. So this was so much fun. Like I said, this is also another situation where our main character is like narrating the story and like talking to you, like breaks the fourth wall and like talks to you directly as the reader, which I think is like so much fun. This also has some humor in it. It's also a lot of like drama. So Every Time I Go on Vacation, Someone Dies has drama because you have all of these like very like catty, entitled like authors. But there's drama here as well because this story follows a guy, I don't remember what his name is, but he's going to his like family reunion. And so it's like him, he has a brother who is getting out of jail. His mom, who he's like kind of estranged from. He has a stepsister. I think he has a stepdad. He has an aunt who is a handful. He has in-laws who are also just wacky. So there's a lot of like family drama that's happening in this book as well. On top of like the murder piece and them trying to figure out who done it. You're getting like the backstory on like some of the things that happen in our main character's like not necessarily his past, but like his family's past. And it is a fun, wild ride that I had a great time with, and I would absolutely recommend this book. You may be able to tell what book is next just because if you've been paying attention to my shelves, you might know what book is missing from the shelf, but it is This Could Be Us by Kennedy Ryan. This book was amazing. Like, I thought that Before I Let Go was amazing, but this just like completely topped that. I think that out of the three women in the first book, you have Yasmin, Soledad, and Hendrix. The first book is about Yasmin. And then you have Hendrix, who is a firecracker. And then you have Soledad, and Soledad just kind of seemed a little boring to me, I'll be honest. So I wasn't really sure if I was going to enjoy a book that is like all about her. But boy, I could not have been more wrong. This book was fantastic. I absolutely loved it. I think I talked in the Cozy Christmas tag about a book that feels like home, that I could like reread over and over again, never get tired of. And I said that Yours Truly would be the book, and I still stand by that. But this one too, I loved this book. I think that if I had read this book and they weren't romantically involved, we were just following these individual characters living their lives, I still would have loved the story and loved these characters. But the fact that they were having like a romance budding between them, that just made it all the better, you know? Soledad is a mom of 3 girls. She's married to this guy. He makes good money. They live in like a very affluent neighborhood. Like I said, they have 3 girls. I think their girls are like all in private school. So like they got money, okay? That's all you need to know. They have money. And her husband is kind of a dick. Not kind of a dick. He is a dick. He's very disrespectful in the first book. So I already didn't like him going into this book because I had seen how he was acting in the first book. Then you get to the beginning of this book and he's still a dick. I'm just like, oh, I thought that maybe we were going to get to see a different side of him. Nope, he's still a and some things happen in the beginning of the book that I won't spoil, but they end up separating and she ends up becoming a single mom of these 3 girls. And it's basically about her finding herself, finding her independence, because she basically got married young and had 3 girls. Although she went to school, she has a degree, things like that, she never had a career. Her job was her family. Her job was raising her children and making her house a home. And so she never had to have a like job that like provided income. And so now that she and her husband are no longer together, the husband is no longer in the picture. Her husband, which is also the father of these girls, he's no longer in the picture. She now has to figure out how to be the provider for this family, which is something that she's never had to do before. She's also just trying to find herself because she's always been defined as being a mom and a wife. She kind of has to come into her own and figure out who she is. How does she navigate the world, you know, on her own as an independent woman, as a single mom? And just this book talks about like finding yourself, dating yourself, you know, learning yourself. And I just loved all the messaging in this. The dialogue in this was incredible. Judah also was an incredible male main character. He has 2 special needs sons. He is also co-parenting, and the way that he navigates that. And then between them living their own separate lives and the things that are going on in their own separate lives, then when they come together and the romance and the, ooh, so good, so good. I can't say enough good things about this book. I cannot wait for the 3rd book in this series. I fully believe that Hendrix is like based on every character that Jennifer Lewis has ever played. And so I cannot wait, honestly, to see what she does with Hendrix's story. And then last but not least, my #1 spot of favorite book that I read in 2024. You may already know what it is. 1, because I probably talked about it a bazillion times. But 2, again, if you're looking at my shelves, you might be able to tell which book is missing. And maybe you guessed it, maybe you didn't. But the #1 spot goes to Alone with You on the Ether by Olivia Blake. I love this book. This is a book that even though I read it like 6, 7, 8 months ago, I still think about this book like all the time. I love the story, the romance, the characters, the mental health rep. I ended up getting this physical copy that you see here because my dear old friend Katie, it is true what they say, one person's trash is another person's treasure. So I'm so glad that Katie did not want this book and that she wanted to unhaul it so that I could bring it home with me because it is one of my beloved treasures. I love the fact that the mental health rep in here is also very like vague and kind of abstract so that it's not geared toward one particular mental health diagnosis, and that way different people who struggle with different like mental health diagnoses can feel seen in this and not feel like, oh, this isn't me, I don't have that. You know, it's more open so that it allows for more representation. I really like that. Just the quotes in this book, oh my gosh, there are some heavy things in here, and also there's a lot of like big brain concepts, but there's definitely a lot of like science and stuff thrown in here as well. And as a STEM girly, I appreciate that. But it can be heavy, you know what I mean? It's not something that's like super fun and light and bouncy. This was incredible. This, I don't have the words. There's not enough good things I can say about this book other than like, just, yes. Yes. And with that, that is the end of this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know down below if you have read any of these books, if there are any books that I put as like my favorite books that you absolutely were like, ugh, yikes, no. Or vice versa. If there are books that I did not enjoy that you absolutely loved. I imagine that When the Moon Hatched is probably going to be a controversial one. But yeah, let me know down below what books were some of your worst or best reads of 2024. If you don't have anything to comment, or if you're not sure what to comment, leave the scale emoji down below in the comments. But yeah, that is it from me. As always, you guys know what to do. Be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. I'd love to have you as part of the channel. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.